Hello everyone, I'm Dave Taylor, and today we're going to talk to you about our final project, Worldle. So what is Worldle? Well, one morning after completing a very popular daily word game, we thought it'd be interesting to create our own. Instead though, we would make it a slight twist in that you could select continents and then guess cities based on the selected continent. So when the app first loads, it will render this pop-up that contains instructions and examples of how to play the game. You can close this pop-up, and then you're back to the home page and you can select a continent to play. So for this example, I will select Europe. And as I mentioned earlier, it will then generate the game for Europe and give you a city based on that continent. And I will make my first guess, which will be Lisbon. So as you can see, the tiles have changed like it showed in the example. And I know that L, O, and N are in the word and also in the correct spot. And the other side of it is I can see that I, S, and B have stayed grey, which means that they're not in the word at all. So based on this information, do an educated guess, and also because I know the answer, and do London. As you can see, when you win the game, you'll get a pop-up message saying, well done, you've conquered Europe. You can go back to the home page and select your next continent to play. So do another example, click onto Asia, and start making a guess. In Mumbai. So you can see that's only given me one, and it is not in the correct spot. So I will make another guess and do there you go, and you can see that is correct, and I've successfully conquered Asia. I'm also very glad that that was the word, because it's not too dissimilar from a word I thought many times during the project, so that's quite fitting. And that's how to play the game. So this is the app's homepage, and as you can see, it contains a world map. This world map is actually a React interactive map, and what it allows us to do is highlight each continent as we hover over it. What the map also allows us to do is render the word game based on the selected continent. For example, if I click into Europe, it will generate the word game based on that selection. Also, if I go back to the homepage, select North America, it will do the same for this. We also decided to create a dark theme for the app. The user experience is exactly the same. There is just now no chance of being blinded. The game runs exactly the same. I'll just do an example. Austin. And there we go. You can see I've also conquered the game in dark mode. So currently the app is completely front end. So obviously we had to make the use of a lot of different technologies and components to get it to work. One of the main ones being the World React map, which we used to integrate an interactive map for the game. And through that we was able to route continents based on the selection on the map, which is integral to how the word game actually generates and picks words from a list for each city. We also had to create a keyboard component which allowed the user to input the guess and enter it and be given feedback. The feedback was handled through CSS based on classes given to each letter.
So the third-party map component is imported from React World Map. That's the NPM package that we used. And then when we render the world map, on select of a given continent, it will push the continent name into the browser using history.push. And then from there, the app will then load up the word game based on that given continent. And then from there, the word game accesses the continent data, which is held in an external file called words.js. All this file is simply a bank of data for each given continent. It is a nested object, so for each continent we hold a specific object which holds a name for that continent, which is rendered on the page, an image of that continent which is rendered behind the grid, and then a list of the cities within that continent that the user then has to guess. This is the same for each continent, and then we also have this all object, which is simply a bank of a mini dictionary, if you will, for the cities across the world that we have across the whole game. This is used to validate that the user is entering a valid city when they do play the game. So for Worldle, we opted to just use front end for the app. The original idea was to create an app to guess country names as well as city names. However, we simplified this to just the cities quiz in the end. So rather than using an external API to get this data, we decided to create our own data file. We felt the external API might have been a tad overkill, given we were only feeding back city names rather than multiple data parameters. Given more time, I think we would have liked to incorporate different word lengths, which may be more beneficial to take advantage of external APIs. And we would have liked more back-end features such as statistics, which are fed back to the user. So things such as number of guesses required for the answer and like win streak information.
So when the user has guessed a city, this is a logic that determines if the letters in their guess are in the correct spot, if they are present, or if they are absent altogether. And when each one of these is assigned, that relates to the CSS, which decides if the background should be green, if the background should be orange, or if the background should be grey. So in the first one, you can see if the character in the solution is the same as the character in the word, we push correct. If the word has the character, but it isn't in the correct spot, we push present. And if the word doesn't have the character at all, push absent. And then finally, if the user matches 6, we give them the win. Otherwise, if the row reaches its full length without a win, the user is lost, and then we push the solution.
So we incorporated a few different practices for Worldle. Firstly, we created the Trello board, which helped the planning process. We were able to make notes of specific features we wanted the app to include. We were able to plan certain components, and we were able to provide a ticketing system when developing the app to make sure that we didn't have unnecessary duplicate work. We did a lot of mob programming to tackle issues as a team, and we were able to bounce ideas off one another. We felt this was very effective during the coding process. We created one GitHub repo, which we were both able to branch and merge any developments, which made the app consistent, and to make sure that we were both on the same page when we were working on the app. And then we also made use of the Slack messaging service. This was particularly useful when we were working solo, as we were able to keep each other updated. So as I've mentioned, we did make use of the Trello board when we were designing and planning the app. As you can tell, this is the end product of the Trello board, which shows the 2 columns in the middle show that the tickets that we did actually achieve. The one on the left was the styling issue that we unfortunately couldn't manage to complete in time for deadline. This was changing the map based on the success and failure of a specific continent. And then on the right, you'll find the few tickets that we would like to achieve given more time to complete the app. We encountered a few problems when developing Worldle. The interactive map we used was from a third-party source, which brought about its own challenges with regards to React routes, as well as the CSS styling on specific continents. Given more time, we would have liked to style the individual continents to give the user a bit more feedback on which continent they had passed or failed, i.e. we would have changed the colouring between green and red. Furthermore, as we previously mentioned, we simplified the app from a country as well as a city guessing game to just a city guessing game. With more time, I think we would have preferred to make use of an external API to store data and retrieve that data for the user to then guess. We did come across some specific challenges when verifying the user input. So any certain words which contained duplicate letters, such as London with 2 O's and 2 N's, we did struggle to validate them guesses effectively in the app. But we did eventually overcome this by integrating specific CSS classes from the user input. And we also wanted to make use of keyboard implementation. At the minute, the app only includes an on-screen keyboard using the mouse. We would have preferred to get keystroke functionality in there also, but time did not permit.
And finally, we just want to say a big thank you to everyone at Manchester Codes, all the tutors from front end to back end and as far back as the fundamentals. And to our fellow students, good luck for the future. From Hello World to Hello Worldle, Dave Taylor signing off.